All right, so I'm off mute. Welcome everybody. It's 10:01. Let's get started. Welcome to the ODI Educational Seminar for January. And today we are brought to you by Everfresh Fruit. They are the sponsor today. And Everfresh Fruit Company is located in the heart of the Pacific Northwest. It was founded in 1968. They are a quality apple processor and formulated ingredient manufacturers supplying the food, dairy, and beverage industry. They are here. They're here to serve their customers' needs in selecting the best ingredients, finding unique ingredients, and developing product formulations that are custom to their and needs. Everfresh brings the fruit and flavor elements to clients in the abundance they need with the uniqueness that sets them apart. Their specialties include high quality processed apples and high quality food and flavor ingredients. They are certified organic and can produce ingredients that are allergen free, all natural, and non dairy. Their clients range from premium bakeries and dairies to multinational food companies. They produce many national brands and artisan companies alike. Research and development at Everfresh is done in-house. Their knowledgeable staff is available to develop new products as well as support or enhance existing or established products. Their product development team is made up of skilled technicians and degreed food scientists. They are extremely technical as well as very creative. They are qualified scientists, but at the same time, they're culinary artists. They turn around concepts quickly and can provide product for test marketing in a short amount of time. Their philosophy, they achieve success when they help their customers to be successful and by producing innovative products of the highest quality. They measure success through quality, service, and good business practices. They don't just make it, they make it better. Everfresh is committed to providing customers with safe, quality food products. This is achieved by following food safety and quality management systems to meet their customer and regulatory requirements, continually improving systems, and regularly reviewing food safety and quality objectives. Some of the markets they serve are yogurt and frozen desserts, ice cream, dairy and non-dairy, beverages, bakery, filling and toppings, and food service. Thank you, Everfresh, for sponsoring this morning's seminar. And today we have a panel of 3 speakers from the OSU Food Innovation Center. We have Sarah Masoni, Jason Ball, and Mike Adams. Sarah Masoni manages the product and process development team, working intimately with food entrepreneurs and small to mid-sized food companies to help them create food and beverages focused on specialty foods across the Northwest. Sarah has 30 years of experience working in the food industry, including quality control and assurance, research and development, product scale-up, ingredient sourcing, ideation, product evaluation, nutrition database labeling, and label review. Sarah also teaches entrepreneurial classes at the FIC across the US and internationally. Jason Bell is a culinary manager and works on the product and process development team at the Food Innovation Center. His work uses creative thinking, innovative techniques, and scientific principles to develop value-added food and beverage products across all categories. His team fosters collaboration, relationships with product partners to provide exceptional service that best meets the needs of each client. Additionally, Jason manages the culinary events and the culinary ideation program at the FIC. Previously, Jason has worked in the food industry as a chef in Chicago, New York, London, and Copenhagen. Finally, we have Mike Adams. Mike Adams is senior food scientist at the Food Innovation Center. His background is in food and fermentation science, bakery product development, organic certification, and food safety plan management. Mike supports shelf life and sensory programs and is also available for nutrition labeling, quality analysis, food safety, and product development projects. Mike has specific expertise and experience in shelf life concerns, bakery chemistry, organic certification, coffee roasting, and fermentation beverages. And with that, I'll start the presentation and give the floor to Sarah. Sarah.
Thank you, Matt. I also want to thank Everfresh for sponsoring our talk today, and also the Oregon Dairy Industries for having us on to talk to you about this funny idea we had last year. We were going to actually make some ice cream with ranch flavor for the conference, but we're not able to do that for today. So we're going to just talk about it and dream about it. So when we can see the presentation, I can't see it yet, Matt.
Can you see it now?
Are you muted?
Can you see it?
It was there and then it disappeared.
Okay. Hold on, let me stop it and start it again. Where'd it go? It went away. Hold on. Can you now see it?
Yes, but we need to go to the first slide.
We have to go to the first slide.
And also go to presentation mode.
Okay, presentation mode. And the first slide, go ahead.
Thanks, Matt. So the question we're going to talk about today is, what do vanilla ice cream and ranch dressing have in common? So let's go ahead and talk through it and see what we found out through our research and talking amongst ourselves that we found. So next slide. First, I want to tell you just a brief story about the Food Innovation Center. Basically, we're up in Portland, right off of the river, Willamette River on Nato Parkway, which was formerly a rail yard. And before that, it was a place where indigenous people met and lived here in the Portland area. The Food Innovation Center opened in May in 1999, and our Innovation Center probably sees actually more than 500 people or projects or consumers, or I mean, literally thousands of people a year. Next slide. Next slide. That's a photo of the Food Innovation Center. We're architecturally pleasing, and actually we are the anchor tenant in the Pearl District. So we were one of the first new buildings built in this area many years ago. Next slide. Our team, we have Mike, Jason, and myself, and also Catherine Hay. Next slide. And that's me last summer out in the backyard. I put up a quote about myself. I really see Oregon as being at the forefront of innovation. We have people literally coming to Oregon and to Portland from around the world to learn about how we're changing our food economy here in Portland and across the state of Oregon through the work that we do with entrepreneurs and food businesses to make sure that they're relevant and they have new foods and stuff ready to launch into the marketplace. Next slide.
Oh, this one's me. This is me enjoying some Bob's Red Mill oatmeal. I picked this kind of quote because I'm both a scientist and a creative person. I like to try new things. This also speaks to one thing that I learned in grad school is that I hate commas. Microsoft Office wanted me to put a comma after happen, and I said no. So if we ever write something together, I will remove all your commas.
Next slide.
So if this is me, actually after I got off a boat, I was in Norway, and I got on a high-speed boat that almost went to the North Pole, basically. But I had this really surprised look on my face because it was freezing cold and the boat was really fast. But yeah, I chose this quote because I think this speaks to my perspective of how I work. You know, it was a long time ago when I stopped looking at things in terms of quality, you know, and saying something like a steak or a lobster is really, really high quality and high value, and started to think, well, maybe a squash that's just perfectly in season and fresh fruit and berries that are really high quality could be looked at equally. And so this is how I approach the work that we do when working with food and ingredients. Next slide, please.
So I wanted to just comment about us telling you a little bit about ourselves. We believe that when we work with companies on food products, that we become part of their team. And we like to make sure that they know us. And so when we would do an ideation session, we would typically start with an icebreaker and tell each other a little bit about who we are and what we like and stuff like that. This is our wall of products at the Food Innovation Center. And it's a display area in the main part of the building where we have product packaging from folks from all around Oregon. And we actually have quite a few dairy items right down front and center there. You see them. Usually people like to film us and photograph us in front of this wall. So we'll strategically move packaging around to make sure that we get people into the film. So that's pretty exciting. This is also used for trade managers. We bring people in from around the world to see the types of foods that are made here. And we always start our tours in front of this wall to show people the types of foods we've helped develop and the work that we've done in the industry. Next slide. This is our kitchen. It's in the center of the Food Innovation Center. That's one of our summer interns, Emily. I like to think about this kitchen is really the central kitchen. It's sort of where the heartbeat is at the Food Innovation Center. If you're doing work at the Food Innovation Center, you pretty much have to pass through this facility. It's used equally by our sensory research group and also our product development group. Next slide. There's Anne. She's our sensory research director, and she is passing a sample through the window to a consumer that's participating in the sensory and consumer research that we frequently do at the Food Innovation Center. Right now with the COVID shutdown, the sensory team has been coming up with new ways of doing sensory testing. In fact, have done some outside under tents, and they also are able to send samples to folks in their homes for home use tests. Next slide. We recently, well, it was 2 years ago, opened a new lab in the Food Innovation Center that was graciously funded through funding from Bob's Red Mill, the Wheat Marketing Center, and a couple of private donors. And so we have a nice lab with a meeting area and large screen TV that's totally dedicated to food product development. Next slide. Okay, so let's jump right in. When we start working on a food product or a new idea, we often will look across categories to get inspired and figure out what might work in an area where it may not have been previously used. And so when I was thinking about the idea for this talk, I was thinking about that probably most people in the dairy industry would think I would be crazy if I told them they should put ranch dressing into ice cream and start telling their consumers that they should serve ice cream with ranch flavor with carrot sticks to their kids as a snack instead of ranch dressing right now that's typically formulated from salad oil. Basically, ranch dressing was started in the 1950s, and it was being served on I think on a farm or a ranch down in the California region. And folks were enjoying it so much that the gentleman that developed the recipes started packaging it and selling it. Next slide. Just to quickly review, it's always good to look at what we would make in our home kitchen compared to what we can buy commercially. In this case, Hidden Valley Ranch, which is the top flavor of ranch dressing and the original impetus for this salad dressing, is now basically made with vegetable oil, water, sugar, salt, non-fat buttermilk, egg yolk, natural flavors and spices and stabilizers and preservatives. But when you look to the right side, you see that if we were to make it at home, we would make it from mayonnaise, sour cream, buttermilk, and a bunch of really nice spices that you might find in your kitchen spice drawer. Next slide. I'll let Mike talk about this recipe.
This is a commercial salad dressing that was sent out in a tech sheet when we reached out to an ingredients company recommending a stabilizer for for different salad dressings. We have a similar slide on ice cream as well, and we can just look at that. Just kind of confirms the ingredient deck that Sarah read earlier. Mostly water and oil. What you'll notice here that's going to be pretty different to ice cream is this is high liquid, low solid. Next slide.
Ice cream, the origins of ice cream. Wow, ice cream is much older product than ranch dressing. It was actually started and recorded back in the 2nd century BC, where folks would send somebody running out, maybe in a chariot or something, to a mountain to harvest snow and bring it back to be served with flavors like honey and nectar. And then in the 1600s, people started to be able to have ice cream or gelatos served in retail locations, and then eventually came to the US in the 1700s. And I think during the early 1900s, we could find ice cream shops almost on every corner in every neighborhood. So the United States is definitely in love with ice cream. Next slide. Again, I pulled the ice cream data sheet ingredient statement from Great Value Ice Cream, which is, I believe, sold at Walmart stores. And the formula is basically reconstructed to create the lowest cost, highest overrun product. And then on the right, you can see that you can make a delightful ice cream at home with just 4 ingredients. And so I think consumers right now get confused and more interested in that home recipe than maybe the one that's highly processed and over formulated. Next slide.
Here's another example formulation from a tech sheet, again from an ingredient supply company. Giving an example on how to use their stabilizer product. This one seems to be a bit of a middle ground between the at-home recipe and the more maybe budget-friendly version as well. As compared to ranch dressing or dressings in general, this is about a third of the content is solids, so a lot less liquid. Next slide.
In doing our research, we actually found a new ice cream graph, and it looks like chocolate ice cream moved above vanilla as a favorite over the summer, this last summer, which I think the flavors of ice cream move around. I remember when cookies and cream was new and actually peaked above vanilla for a short time. But right now, I think chocolate has the lead lead spot. So we need to make sure that we have really good chocolate ice creams available to our consumers. Next slide.
Okay, now we can talk a little bit about what these two things don't have in common. From our perspective, this list was actually smaller than the list of what ice cream, vanilla ice cream and ranch do have in common. So let's start here. I think generally ranch is looked at as a condiment, something that you would add to other foods and not necessarily eat alone. Also, just in terms of shelf stability, ranch is commonly acidified, whereas ice cream you will find always in the freezer. And also, ice cream has a standard of identity for the code regulations. And ranch dressing, you have a little bit more flexibility with, right? We've seen lots and lots of varieties and different recipes for ranch, but most often you'll find that it's savory and salty. And generally, we find that ice creams are a little bit more sweet, although there is a little bit of sweetness in ranch dressing as well. Let's see, is there anything else that I've missed, Mike, Sarah?
No.
All right, let's go to the next slide.
A lot of stuff.
Now, this is where the fun begins. This is everything that ranch and vanilla have in common. So both are emulsions, and Mike's going to dig into that a little bit later on in the presentation. Both contain milk or can contain milk. I might argue that both of these things taste better cold. They're liquid under refrigeration and at room temp. Both of these products can have inclusions. You'll see that we've got a lot of herbs and spices and things in ranch, and vanilla ice cream can have tons and tons of stuff in there. Both of these are, you have the ability to add other ingredients to make them more interesting. We've seen things like syrups and toppings added to vanilla ice cream, and again, the list could go on for dressing. Both contain stabilizers. Both should be pasteurized. Both of these have a high fat content and contain protein. And I'm from the Midwest, so I would say that ranch is a major family favorite for me and basically everybody that I know. And we were thinking about a la mode in terms of putting vanilla ice cream on top of pie, which is, maybe we can think of like a pizza a la mode with ranch dressing. Next slide, please. So let's dig a little bit deeper into these comparisons. And unfortunately, this is not a real product, but this was, I think, a joke that Hidden Valley Ranch put on Twitter as a collaboration sort of fun idea with Pop-Tarts. But yeah, I just thought we needed to share this with everyone.
I don't think Pop-Tarts was very interested in this idea. Do you, Mike and Jason?
I wish they were.
Not.
And I probably would have myself switched the filling and the topping. Maybe
yeah, the color palette's off.
Yeah. But the box looks pretty nice.
Yeah.
Next slide, please.
This one's real, I think.
Yep. This is a real product that I found that's using the term milkshake on the front of it to describe a toaster pastry. And so I was like, wow, we better look up the definition of milkshake. And one of the things that I see in the definition is that it typically has ice cream included. And so I don't think milkshakes have a standard of identity, but there is a definition in Webster's. So I'm not exactly sure if they put any milk products or any ice cream into this Pop-Tart, but I think it's maybe mislabeled. I'm not sure. Next slide.
Ooh, this is me. I have a tendency to get into the weeds when I talk about this, so I'm going to kind of breeze through this, but leave room for questions at the end. Ranch and ice cream are both a special type of dispersion called emulsion. Dispersions have discontinuous and continuous phases. They're both oil and water emulsions. So the discontinuous phase is oil and the continuous phase is water. Next slide. Here's a brief visual representation of kind of what I was just talking about. So we have water, continuous phase, kind of living all around inside the product, whereas we have these oil droplets that are, in different kind of pockets around. Next slide. Unfortunately, it gets a little bit more complicated than that. As we all know, churned ice cream has overrun, which is another discontinuous phase in the continuous phase. A gas and water dispersion is called a foam. So this makes ice cream a little bit more complicated. Ranch dressing, on the other hand, especially if it's hot filled, is going to have minimal air incorporated to it because of gas solvency in liquids, just temperature dependent. Can move on to the next slide where our diagram gets a little bit more complicated. Oh wait, just kidding. So we also have solid particulates in suspension in ranch dressing. A solids and water dispersion is called a suspension. And so ice cream and ranch are both, pretty complicated dispersions. And then next slide. So here's a fun visual representation of that. We see some air pockets and some oil dispersed in the ice cream, and then maybe some dill or some parsley right there dispersed all throughout the ranch dressing. We can move on to the next slide where we're going to talk about those stabilizers we mentioned earlier. So we reached out to Ingredion and said, hey, we're going to make an ice cream. What stabilizer do you recommend and what's in it? So one of the ones they recommended to us was this one. It's a blend of gum acacia, guar gum, and locust bean gum. Gum acacia, they claim, helps with the emulsification and lends towards a creamy mouthfeel. Guar gum helps kind of smooth out the large ice crystal formation and prevents iciness. And then locust bean gum is synergistic with guar gum and can help pair up with the dairy protein to increase smoothness and creaminess. Building this viscosity is going to help suspend those air bubbles that we need to have a good overrun, and it'll help stabilize those post-churn and then through packaging during pumping, which can kind of beat up the product a little bit. Next slide. This is one of the 2 stabilizers that they recommended for use in ranch dressing. This one's a blend of xanthan gum, guar gum, and sodium alginate. Xanthan gum is going to build viscosity and help suspend particles by making these kind of weak overlapping networks. They don't actually gel from a chemistry standpoint. They're just kind of overlapping and entangling. Guar gum is nice because it's cold water soluble and builds viscosity instantly. So you can see the viscosity building effect on the product as you add guar gum in real time. And then sodium alginate makes soft gels with any divalent cation, which in dairy products is going to be calcium. And adjusting the usage level of this particular stabilizer, the more sodium alginate, the more gel you form, and that helps modify your texture. So if you want a pourable ranch versus one that's going to be spoonable out of a jar, you could adjust the level of sodium alginate to change, kind of your end goal. Next slide. From a different standpoint, this is one of the other salad dressing stabilizers that they recommend for ranch dressing. And this one uses Carrageenan. So we still have xanthan gum, of course, to suspend our particles. But Carrageenan is nice because it can kind of shepherd dairy proteins through high temp pasteurization. And it also can mimic the mouthfeel of milk fat in low fat applications. Unfortunately, unlike guar gum, Carrageenans typically need a heat step to help thicken. So you're going to have to do a lot of benchtop trials to make sure you're getting the right amount when you're using Carrageenans. Next slide. Some other products that are often recommended in different formulations. We have inulin, which is a fiber, and that can be useful for building solids and frozen desserts, but it's kind of specifically not recommended for use in salad dressing. Starch is often recommended because that has better viscosity building properties. Inulin doesn't really help suspend particles or help build viscosity that much. And if you want to use a starch that kind of acts like guar gum, where you can build viscosity instantly, pre-gelatinized starches can be helpful. Next slide. Can't talk about ranch dressing and ice cream without talking about fat. I like fat. Fat tastes good. That's kind of the takeaway here. But as fat and water aren't immiscible, oftentimes we're going to employ the use of emulsifiers, which will help keep the fats in their phase and the water in the discontinuous phase, so we don't see any coagulation or separation. Next slide. And so we start to see that ranch and ice cream are kind of infinitely complex. We're going to start to see these stabilizers overlapping and entangling, suspending the oil droplets, keeping the particulate in suspension, keeping the air from moving around too much, and then those emulsifiers that are going to help stabilize our small oil droplets and keep those from coalescing. Next slide. So we have all these functional ingredients in ice cream and ranch dressing, and those are definitely going to impact how we have to handle the product from a rheology standpoint. Rheology is the study of deformation and flow. As we add these different ingredients, we're going to see differences in rheology that are going to affect how we actually have to handle these. So whether or not something has a yield stress or if it exhibits shear thinning or thixotropy, that might pick what type of pump you need. And you might need to source, a different pump or a different mixer at different stages in the process. And then that, leads to all sorts of different proprietary formulations and different processing choices down the line. Next slide. Is this one Jason?
I think this one's Sarah.
Actually, I did a little bit of sleuthing on the internet, and I was interested about how similar actually ranch dressing and ice cream are in food service from a standpoint of how it's packaged in large quantities. And it's also, you can also purchase it in single serve containers. So those are two very consistent packaging ideas for these two products, but also you can buy powdered mixes for ranch dressing and for an imitation soft serve, well, it's supposed to be ice cream, but if you look at the listing, it looks more like ranch dressing, just no spices. Next slide. The market share for each of these products for ice cream, I think this was taken from the International Dairy Foods Association website. The industry supports so many jobs, 11 billion in sales in ice cream. Lots of wages created from ice cream sales. And, most of the manufacturers have been in business for 50 plus years, and they're mostly owned by families. Ranch dressing, on the other hand, is owned by one major corporation. It's one of Clorox's portfolio items, and just the one dressing alone sells $550 million in sales in their fiscal year-end report of 2019. Next slide.
All right. As product developers, we are always looking at consumer interests and studying market research and trends to kind of identify what consumers find important and how we can innovate and make exciting food products that kind of follow along with those trends and interests. So let's go to the next slide. And I thought we would start by taking a look behind the curtain of a condiment company called Sir Kensington with a fun commercial that they put together, I think in 2017. You can go ahead and run that video, Matt.
Sorry, I'm getting it pulled up.
You're doing great.
At Sir Kensington's, our mission is to bring integrity and charm to ordinary. We realized that while food was evolving, condiments had been left behind. Living at the intersection of cooking and eating, condiments are food too.
When I say condiments are food too, should I whip out the mustard? Yeah. Condiments are food too.
But to get here, here, and here,
we have to start here, and here, and here, and here,
and here. We've created the only mayonnaise made from certified humane, free-range eggs. Like no other ketchup, our first ingredient is tomatoes, not concentrate. We make our mustard from high quality seeds, carefully blended for a pungent punch.
Did I lose it? We do this driven by a love of food. Because for food, there's no greater compliment than a great condiment. And that's why we start at the source.
Because it's the tomatoes that make the ketchup, the seeds that make the mustard, the eggs that make the mayo, and the condiments that make your meal. Delicious.
All right, thanks, Matt. So we thought we should show that video because we are looking at ranch dressing and ice cream as food, right? If we strip them of their label as condiment or a dessert, we have just two items that are food products. And I think that consumers are equally interested in the environment and the ingredient sourcing and sort of the ethics that are involved in production. And so I thought it was pretty cool that Sir Kensington identified that and promoted that in a commercial. And I think the same could apply to ice cream producers. And so we can actually go, well, never mind. Sarah had a great example when we were talking about this, about Organic Valley hosting consumers to come through on dairy farm tours, right?
That's right. I think it was either Wall Street Journal or New York Times several years ago interviewed me and asked about the idea of the Organic Valley opening up the farms for families to come and learn about the farm families and the production of milk and the humane treatment of the dairy animals. And I think it was well received, and it may be something that we should be considering here in Oregon.
Yeah, I think transparency is hugely important. We can go to the next slide and talk a little bit more about this. And so this is, and I think it's the next few slides as well, but this is some market research that we found from Mintel. And I'll go through these quickly just to kind of save on time. But for the most part, this is some data and information to, again, show that consumers are interested in ethical sourcing and the social mission that companies promote, right? And so I think it's just all falls under this general idea of transparency and sharing as much information as you can in terms of production with consumers. So let's go to the next slide.
Matt, is there a way to get the gray boxes off the slides?
Yeah, let me stop sharing again.
Thank you. I think the next slide, the message is the use of sustainable packaging and updating of branding is something that consumers are demanding right now from the products that they purchase. And so Jason found a little bit of information about that. I think the dairy industry is, in my opinion, tended to keep old packaging and old branding with small changes, and it sort of throws the products into a commodity sort of mentality for consumers. And so we've seen brands like Califia almond milk come in with a really unique new bottle that they designed to sort of look like the shape of an almond, and other folks using new and interesting packaging to draw consumers in. And I think the dairy industry could really benefit from evaluating packaging.
We want to be at slide 40, I believe.
There you go.
All right. Just a little bit more information. This is a report that was focused on condiments from November 2019. But again, going back to the point that we made earlier, right? Condiments are food. Ice cream is food too. And so We need to sort of lean into consumer expectations and focus on integrity and authenticity. I thought this was really a good point too, which is the next one, that recipes are a gateway to purchases. I've seen this more and more with condiment producers, and just kind of the idea that you can implement or increase usage from a consumer standpoint of a condiment with a recipe, right? And figure out interesting ways that consumers can include these condiments and dressings and things in their everyday cooking and consumption. And I think the same could happen for ice cream as well, right? I think if we kind of started to look at ice cream as an ingredient and change some, give some information about recipes and applications for consumers, could be some really interesting things that happen there. And then lastly, I think the third point was about gut health, and kind of leaning into the fact that consumers are much more interested in products that deliver something other than just great taste, right? And so we're seeing more and more focus on probiotic foods, and foods that have adaptogens, and just all these different things that exist. And I think this has largely been seen in the beverage and condiment sort of categories, but there's no reason that we can't kind of move in that direction for ice cream as well. And this slide here is just some more data about consumer interest in fermented condiments, but also I guess with that point, we should mention, I think education is really, really important, and helping consumers understand what you are delivering, if you're delivering it, and how it benefits them. Next slide, please. Ooh, okay, this is the fun one, because we are always looking for inspiration in everything that we do. And I think we can get a lot of inspiration if we sort of look to other cultures and international flavors. And so this example here, again, is from condiments. And we see all of these sort of interesting flavor profiles that can be applied to make condiments interesting. But I think some of these could apply to ice cream as well. And so we went through this list. I think we kind of only pulled out a few that maybe we thought wouldn't work so well for ice cream. For the most part, I think quite a few of these would be delicious.
Yeah, we've done a churro ice cream actually with the help of Everfresh for a Museum of Ice Cream, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And it's not on this list, but we've also made a miso ice cream that I thought was delicious. Had a little bit of mixed reviews, but.
On the other side, I saw at the grocery store the other day that Heinz has a product called Cranch now, which is ketchup and ranch mixed together. So maybe it's time to fuse ketchup and ice cream.
Well, we also just worked with, what was that condiment called that we put on the fried chicken sandwiches?
Oh, that was a sriracha mayo also from Heinz. I don't know if it had a fun name, but it was delicious.
It was delicious.
It was so spicy.
But, I think the takeaway here for me, at least, is that, we can learn a lot from kind of stepping outside of our comfort zone and looking towards new and exciting flavor combinations and putting things together to give interesting experiences to consumers. That's what we strive to do every day. So
I guess my question would be what is the next great ice cream? I think cookies and cream is sort of not the favorite ice cream anymore. So what is it? Besides vanilla and chocolate, what could be the next?
Why not carrots and ranch?
Exactly.
Yeah, is this the point in the presentation where we say that we made ranch ice cream and ate it with celery sticks and it was totally delicious?
It was so good. It was actually, it was a super high fat ice cream base, and we just poured a packet of ranch in it, and it was outstanding.
Did we do that with almonds, toasted almonds in it too? I think so.
Yeah, we did. We had some.
That was nice.
Mm-hmm.
And we may have also made a keto version.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it had erythritol in it. Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the next slide. Oh, that brings us to the end. I put these pictures in here mostly because I think the way that I looked at this when Sarah had sort of come up with the idea and we started talking about it is basically that there's kind of food and people I think are similar, right? And so if we don't look at the differences, but we focus on the similarities and what we can learn from each other, same thing with ingredients. We focus on how things might pair well together. I think we can deliver on some really interesting and exciting food products. And I guess I'll hand it over to Mike and Sarah for some final thoughts too.
Thank you all for listening to us today, and we're excited to help the dairy industry expand and innovate. So working along with our partners at Everfresh, we would be happy to help folks if you're interested in innovating in the dairy category.
Yeah, this was super fun. Thanks.
Sorry we had some technical difficulties, but we do have some time left for some questions, a couple questions. We're giving away 3 Amazon gift cards, and click on the participants panel on your toolbar, and you can see at the bottom of that there's buttons you can press, and please raise your hand. That's a way we can be fair with that. So raise your hand and we'll call on you and unmute you. Did someone raise their hand?
Listen to the top usually.
No, I haven't seen anybody raise their hand.
Howdy.
There it is.
Uh-oh.
There's one. The hand away. Hattie? Oh, there he is. Let me unmute you. I don't see your hand up.
What?
Oh, there he is. Okay. I'm going to lower your hand, ask you to unmute.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Hadi.
Excellent.
Hi, Hadi.
Good to see you.
Hi, Sarah, Mike, Jason, everybody. Good to see you all. Perfect presentation. Thank you for that. I have one comment and a question. The comment is about the standard of identity on ranch dressing. I don't think it does have a standard of identity, but a lot of ranch dressings are mayonnaise based. And as you know, mayonnaise itself does have a standard of identity. Actually, it needs to have certain percentage of vegetable oils. It needs to have egg. So some of the companies that have tried to make it without the eggs have had some regulatory challenges, I would say. That's my comment. The question is about, I know you guys do quite a bit of work on non-dairy ice creams, kind of these plant-based ice creams. Just out of curiosity, what are some of the technical challenges that you have had to overcome or not, I guess, with the plant-based, ice creams? What are some of the major takeaways from that work? Anything that you can share, obviously, considering the confidentiality of your customers.
I would first comment that over the last 12 months, we've had very limited ice cream development work, and I'm not sure if that's related to this COVID situation. I think a lot of people have gone back and just stuck with their standard ice cream flavors, and at the same time try to just keep the grocery stores stocked. But with all ice cream or frozen desserts, when you modify formulas away from the standard identity, it's always troubling to keep the solids up and to have a smooth body and texture. One of the areas that people are interested in is this keto area. And of course they want to have all fat, but the ice creams tend to be really short. So we're always trying to find a good stabilizing system and all of those types of things and limit the amounts of carbohydrates coming in. So those are always challenges. Nut-based tends to be higher in fat. And again, in my opinion, on the non-dairy, we have the short texture issue to deal with.
Yeah, I've got something to add too. Last winter for the new variety showcase with the Culinary Breeding Network, Jason and I we were paired with a barley breeder, and so we made a non-dairy ice cream, non-dairy frozen dessert out of barley and malted barley of a new variety. And that one, we only kind of had one shot to make it, so we just had to do our best. But we were stuck with a really narrow window of time where the product was either too frozen and too hard to scoop, or way too melty and not pleasing. So there was just we had to bring them out just enough time to get them to actually be scoopable and give them to someone right on time for them to actually consume it before it melted everywhere. So that was definitely a challenge.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of technical challenges, and I think I would also probably say that ice cream is a product that I think many people are really familiar with and have a strong idea of what it is and what it should be, and have strong food memories of it. And so delivering on those expectations with formulations that are different or non-dairy is a challenge.
The other thing that's interesting about ice cream itself is that Penn State did do a study on vanilla ice cream and the different quality attributes and defects. And basically what they found was that people just love ice cream. It can be a bad ice cream and they still love it because it is ice cream. So the trick is to make the ice cream taste good and be consistent every time with whatever style or formula that you're happy with and feel that you can sell. I think that's really what's most important. I see there's a note in here from John Brune about some publications that he and Christine put out about solid content, and also using high solids to qualify for health claims, good source of calcium, and then adding fruit, source of vitamin C, which is great.
Did you want to answer that one, Sarah? Or are you still reading it?
I mean, I think the comments that they put in there are very true. And John said that they did a taste test a few years ago, and one of the ice creams was a hot and spicy vanilla pecan. Sounds like it might have been kind of like a pecan pie ice cream, which is actually really delicious. And I've done ice creams with highly spiced and seasoned flavor profiles as well, with cayenne pepper and very strong cinnamon flavors, and people really tend to like it.
There was that habanero salsa variegate that Sensory Effects showed us too, right? That was cool.
Yes. Yeah, they paired it with a mango swirl inside of a sweet cream base. It was delicious.
Thank you, John. We have the second gift card going out to you. We have time for one more question. I see Hattie, but we only have time for one more. So can I get another hand up for somebody?
I'll answer Hadi's real quick. They're hard. They're bad sometimes. The plant-based ice creams can be really hard from a melting standpoint.
And production as well. We've been in a couple of production facilities running some plant-based ice creams, and hitting that sweet spot of having something that's runnable, but also meets on all these textural deliverables is just tough.
Yeah, it's a heavy lift.
Yeah, because the milk protein solids are so different compared to plant protein. Plant protein is so much more bulky and fibrous that it tends to be more difficult to run in the dairy processing facility. So that could be challenging.
Okay, can I get somebody to hit that raise hand button?
We have a question from Paul Cole.
You can buy ice cream base at Cash and Carry in quarts. You could just add that directly to your coffee. Maybe you should add that directly to your coffee.
Well, isn't that an affogato?
Oh yeah, the ice cream with an espresso shot.
Yeah. We have done
that is
on coffee ice creams, and we have a great coffee concentrate supplier here in Oregon. He's down in Corvallis. Mike found him.
I think he found us. He's great.
Can you tell him who it is?
Oh, that's a guy named Dan Bruner. His company's called Group Head, and he was able to kind of reassemble a coffee concentrate machine that was an old Civets patent that he ran into an old Civets machine at a machine shop in Corvallis buying some welding supplies and thought he could make one himself, and he really did. It's really good quality coffee concentrate.
Okay, well, thank you, everybody. We're going to wrap it up here. If you have any further questions, please send them along to Retha or Sarah. She put her email address on there, and we're going to be giving out that presentation, so you'll have her email address. And send along any extra questions you have, and we'll let you all go. Thank you, Sarah, and Jason, and Mike for coming, and thank you, Everfresh, for sponsoring. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you.